Here is the follow-up story of the two wild Mustangs, Cheyenne and her little foal, Nakota. We donated our time to help the Salt River Wild Horse Management Group, which is a fantastic organization that helps the horses around the Salt River location, which is in Phoenix, Arizona. If you haven't seen the first two videos of Cheyenne and Nakota, please do watch on our Facebook or on the James French YouTube channel. Here is a brief outline. Cheyenne was brought in because she had a very severe injury. And not only that, her band members also started to attack her. I think they wanted to separate her from her foal, but she fought to stop that from happening. The Salt River Management Group came in and then they removed her from being wild and brought her to her facility where she would be safe. On the day that she was brought in, the vet did not have a very good outcome, and she suggested because we wouldn't be able to touch her or to be able to treat her, and we don't know how severe the damage is because we're not going to be able to x-ray, that she recommended that Cheyenne would be euthanized. So we ask, and if we can have a halter on her and she can be handled in 24 hours, can you help? The arrangements were made and the vet was to return in 24 hours. We had 24 hours to start working with the trust technique. This is the first part. After 2 hours, we had created an environment which was trusting enough that we could have our first touch. The trust technique works by reducing thinking levels and works with an element of stillness. And it's the stillness that builds a huge amount of trust. And this was one of those first moments where Cheyenne really opened to us to allow that touch to happen. And from this moment, she did allow me to lie down next to her and very gently touch her wound. Now, this was the same evening, and you know, we've only got 24 hours. The next day, we started pretty much from the same place. Shelley did an amazing session, which was deeply profound, and it was from here that I started the process of having the halter on. We had 1 hour now before the vet would arrive, and in that hour we managed to not only have the halter on but have Cheyenne really relaxed, and then started quite an intense session of cleaning up the leg, giving her very strong antibiotics, having an x-ray done, which she did incredibly well. Most domestic horses would have to be sedated for this, and yet Cheyenne was amazing with this yellow x-ray literally right under her nose, so we're incredibly proud of her for that. Cheyenne actually received full medical treatment as if she was a domestic horse, so we are giving her the best chance that we could. We also taught the staff how to work with the trust technique so that they could carry on with the medication. We were due to leave very soon. We were teaching in Tucson, Arizona, which was about 3.5 hours drive away. We were away for a few days, and during that time we were sent this image, which is the infection coming out. We have a few days before we teach any I Have a Dream day, and then we had the day itself. Now, our plans were that as soon as this workshop had finished, we were flying back to the UK. But unfortunately, we had different news. Cheyenne would not let anybody near her now, and she had this very tight bandage on because her leg had swollen. So with this news, we changed our plans. So we cancelled our flight to the UK. We then came back to the desert land in Phoenix, and we also hired the RV for an extra week so that we could support Cheyenne and Nakota and also the staff. As soon as we arrived back, we noticed that Cheyenne was lying down, so it was straight to work to start building the trust up again. You just have to appreciate that Cheyenne is a wild horse, and it would only take or slightly wrong move for her to read that in the wrong way. And her issue was that when everybody got close to her, she would spin her bum round. Now, this is pretty much what she did with me, even after our lie-down session when we returned, but it was just done on a very gentle way. I was not invading her space too much, but every time I tried to come to the side, she would spin her bum round. Now, whilst we were away, this was a little bit more dramatic, and she was actually trying to kick people that were helping her. And this upset wasn't just towards people either, but also to the neighbouring horses. Cheyenne was not in a good space. She was very unhappy and clearly very sore. We needed to get that bandage off as soon as possible. It was clearly causing her a lot of pain. So we created a very peaceful environment and very slowly started to build the trust up again. But even when I first touched her, she wasn't too happy about that, but because of the pace that we were going, it was acceptable. We then created the environment whereby I could start to touch her again. And yes, this bandage was so incredibly tight and needed to come off. Clearly there was an infection underneath because you could really smell it. So we reduced Cheyenne's thinking levels, working with this still environment so that she could remember us as a relationship, and also that we could communicate clearly that we come to help her and that it's peaceful. By reducing all of the thinking levels around, and hers and ours included, it did create the environment where we could start cutting off the bandage. She wouldn't let me put the rope on the halter yet, but we had created this space. And it was really hard work. It kept breaking the scissors. The infection had made it almost like glue in there, so it was very hard to cut off. And I'm glad we created the peaceful environment first, because this really needed to change as soon as possible. So luckily, on our first time arriving, within a couple of hours, we'd actually got this bandage off. It was clearly infected because the smell was pretty horrific. But she is a wild horse, and she is also capable of looking after herself, which she demonstrated almost straight away, as she needed to clean it herself. And she licked and she chewed on her leg, not overly, but just enough to really start cleaning it up. Obviously, we need to help her with this. We need to have a level of medication, but at the same time, we also have to work with her and her own intuition. She'd cleaned it well, but it was looking pretty sore and swollen. In the meantime, there was a new arrival, and this little guy, unfortunately, has lost his mum. His mum died of colic. It is essential that foals can get as much nutrients and nourishment from their mothers, and it's very hard to bring them up on the same level that a mare would. So little Nakota is very fortunate to still have Cheyenne, which is a very strong mum. And if you look at the difference in their stature, you wouldn't believe it, but these guys are the same age. And Nakota is incredibly relaxed, very healthy, and full of energy. We progressed our work pretty quickly, and it wasn't long before we could have the rope on and off again. This was just the following day, and we brought back the relationship that we had, maybe not exactly where it was. Unfortunately, she was just a wild horse before, and we built her trust, and now she sort of feels that maybe some people overstepped her boundary levels, so we had to bring that back for her. And it was lovely to feel that we had that again, because it meant that we could start to treat her for her medical. She had not had antibiotics for the last 4 days, even though she did actually have them for quite a few days, which would have really helped. It also meant that we could start really cleaning this leg. This leg just very simple cleaning with Epsom salts just to dry it up and to see what's really going on. And she was very good, and it must have been quite a relief. But yes, there's clearly some infection there, and it was coming out of sort of exit holes at the top. So it's vital that we can give her as much treatment as possible. After her cleaning session, she had a lie down. The lie down sessions are really important when we're working with the trust technique. This is our place of truly building that relationship. And for her to really relax down means that every other job that we need to do is going to be a lot easier because we have this amount of trust first. Now, you'll be amazed how many lie-down sessions we actually had over the extra week that we stayed. And it's also essential that she can feel relaxed enough to take the pressure off of her feet and lie down for her recovery. And in this position, everything's very authentic. I'm thinking low, her thoughts are low, which means that we can be in a very still position, which is truthful and honest. So I was actually putting fly spray on her, and of course she's accepting that really well. It's these moments that really count. It's how Cheyenne is here and how we are here that reflects right out to everything that we need to do. As our relationship had been building, it was time to start administering the antibiotics again. It is essential that we can keep this infection away. So we then worked with the syringe which goes into her mouth as we did previously, but this time it was very different. She did not want to swallow, and it was all a little bit forced. So much so that we actually had to spend quite a lot of time with her afterwards, just reducing her mind. Clearly, this was upsetting her, and she did not want this treatment anymore. We did build the relationship back up again, and soon followed with a really lovely lie-down session. In between, we started to put some bedding down, we got some shavings, and we'd actually, just to give her more comfort, the ground was pretty hard, and we had a feeling that she'll be lying down a lot in this week. And again, it was a great place for us to just rebuild our relationship after the horrible medicine incident, but it did give us big questions. What were we going to do? We still need to give her the antibiotics, but this method, and it's probably one of the reasons why she wouldn't let anyone near her again, was the anticipation of having this horrible medicine in her mouth. We also knew that if we don't listen to her, we could potentially end up in the same position where she would not let us near her. So yes, a lot more lie-down sessions, again, gaining that authenticity and just building the trust, but also a quiet space for us to really reflect and say, okay, so how are we going to be flexible to be able to listen to her and still work with trust? The conclusion was to give her her medicine through intramuscular. Now, this is a little bit of a risk because 95% of the horses are absolutely okay with having a needle in them, and that was the needle going in, and luckily she was too. And we had lots of advice from many different vets, and the conclusion was to give her a course of steroids for 3 days, and also to include antibiotics. And here's the antibiotics going in now, and bless little Cheyenne, she hardly noticed it, which is a lot less invasive than what we were doing with her mouth. There was a little bit of a feeling from her, but again, it was acceptable. So thank you very much for all the vets that we got advice from, especially the vets from Ireland. And you know who you are, you superheroes, you. So thank you so much for that advice to help on this level. And this was soon followed with one of those lie-down sessions. As I mentioned before, there were a lot of these. In particular, one day where we believe she went through a lot of healing, and it's so important that she can feel relaxed enough to lie down and take the pressure off of that leg. Now, we're not going to show all of the details in some of these lie-down sessions, but we may just put some videos together because they are incredibly touching, very deep. But this one in particular was really good because Cheyenne, again, she started to really clean her own leg, and it gave me the opportunity, of course, in that nice peaceful state a little bit further on in this session, to be able to start looking at it myself. She was very relaxed and very peaceful, and it just allowed me to really start squeezing around and getting a feel for this, how much of it was swelling, how much of it is still infection, and, really being able to explore it. And after a very good massage and a good squeeze, I could get a little bit of pus coming out, but it wasn't offensive, and it really did make us feel that we were getting on top of this, that the infection is starting to go. The following day started really beautifully. And it's, again, so important that we can have these moments. For Cheyenne herself, the fact that when she was in the wild and injured and her band members were attacking her to try and get Nakota away from her, that's pretty traumatic. Plus the fact she's got a really bad injury. So what an amazing thing that she can be in this safe place now where she's not going to be attacked. She's got her food in one side. She's got 2 steps away her water. And more importantly, she's got her little Nakota. So we also wanted to make everything as comfortable as possible, and we started to make a different type of bed, and that required taking all of the poo away and putting it in the direct sunlight. Now, the idea behind this is that the sun sterilizes the poo and literally turns it to a dust. And then we mix that with the old hay that she hasn't eaten, plus the shavings, and the result was a really lovely bed which didn't move quite as easily as shavings to expose a hard floor, but actually had a bit of a dust layer and was sterile and incredibly comfortable, which was something we can't do in the UK because we just don't have that type of sunlight. But it was a great thing to do for her. She needs to rest. She needs to heal. And the more relaxed she is, the more that healing can take place. And if you think of it like this, if Cheyenne was really anxious and didn't lie down, well, quite simply, her emotional state would then affect her physical healing. It would affect it in the way that she wouldn't be trusting to lie down, and she would put too much weight on that leg. So anything that we can do, from the trust technique to making her bed really comfortable, it's really going to benefit her for the long term. I would really like to share this one moment with you. It highlights how good a mum Cheyenne is. Cheyenne was struggling to lie down flat and go to sleep. And the reason for this is that her little foal Nakota kept putting her leg out straight. So I asked Shelley to move that so it was tucked in, and then she could roll back and really stretch out. So in other words, she didn't go right to sleep because she knew that she potentially could hurt her daughter. You really do get to know animals on a very deep level, and it's incredibly touching that we can recognize just these little movements of how to make her life a little bit better. It also brings a bigger picture. Cheyenne is a horse who is in a lot of pain. There is no question about that. But she also has a huge purpose in Nakota. And it's that purpose which is so much stronger than the pain that she's in. This means she has a huge quality in life. We also work with self-selection, so anything we were putting on her leg, she was selecting it. And this is her selecting a very strong plant that grows in the area. It's called creosote, and it has some amazing properties. It is anti-inflammatory, it is full of antioxidants, and it grows natively. So it was wonderful when she started to eat the leaves of this, and then we made the tea, which we applied to all of her wounds. And the result of everything we were doing was highlighted when we gave little Nikota some space to run. We made a sort of a bigger corral. She's got a lot of energy and she's very healthy. And in all of this excitement and running around, obviously Mum was watching her every move. And then a lovely moment happened, which is Cheyenne also wanted to come out and see what all the fuss was about. And yes, she is incredibly lame, but gosh, it's only been like 4 days and she's weight bearing. Now before, she could hardly put her foot down. So we are definitely heading in the right direction. We showed the staff how to follow up on the care that we've been doing, and we are kind of hoping that we've done enough care to really see her through. We've been treating her ever so simply with Epsom salts and also the creosote that she self-selected. We also introduced her to a mare and foal mix, which would just give her some extra stuff that she needs to be able to fuel herself, to be able to feed Nikota. It's not always easy showing a wild horse something that's incredibly foreign to them. But this was our job, this was our role. Obviously we've been treating her, her leg has been coming down, it's still swollen and it's going to take time, but we also have to trust that she can do this now. The medication course is finished, and the last role we had was going to be taking off the halter. The reason we're taking the halter off is that it is starting to rub, and if she does turn and doesn't allow anyone to get close to her, it could be on for a long time. Now we're trusting in our own healing ability. There was a few little goodbyes. We have spent 24/7 with these guys purely to help them. Shelley and myself have been getting up very early in the morning, and the result is this. A leg that is nice and dry, it has clean wounds, and we are just giving her that opportunity now to be safe so that she feels secure and that her own healing mechanism can take place. What is the result of her long-term injuries? We don't know. We've done the best we can, and we're definitely going to return to see how these guys are getting on. Would you like to share the trust technique with your own animals? Well, that's easy. You can follow the link in the description. This takes you to our foundation video course. There is a free section where you can start exploring what the trust technique is, and if you become a full member, then we will donate 25% to the Salt River Wild Horse Management Group. The foundation video course allows us to be able to donate our time worldwide to organizations such as this free of charge. And the video course itself has over 50 hours of tutorials working with horses, dogs, cats, bears, and lions. You can also donate directly to the Salt River Wild Horse Management Group by visiting their website, and their website details are shown right here.